I'm blending some of the best stuff that we don't do in the US and showcasing it to the average Spider-Man or Batman reader. When you draw the Batmobile from a manga slash Akira standpoint, you can do things with that car that most artists wouldn't think of.
So welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and today I've got Josh with me again, quickly becoming one of the favorite guests for the viewers on the channel. Got a lot of knowledge about DC characters, about hero archetypes, and there was a topic that you wanted to talk about this week. I thought was very interesting. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad that everything seems to be going over well. I love talking DC.
So we're here to talk about the Murphyverse, and it starts with writer artist Sean Gordon Murphy. I was a bit late to the series when it all started with Batman White Knight. When I finally read it, it wasn't the trades, and the first thing that really caught my attention is the art. It's dark, it's brooding, heavy use of shadows, which I love in Batman comics. It has a really sketchy style that's distinctly Sean Gordon Murphy. Josh, what are your thoughts on Sean Gordon Murphy's art in White Knight? And do you think his style being so distinctive is going to hinder other artists moving forward in the Murphyverse?
Yeah, I mean his art is one of those things that just catches you right away, straight from the covers of the book. I have like my own little like black book of Batman artists that are the best, like Jim Aparo, Greg Capullo. Like those guys are classic Batman artists, but Sean Gordon Murphy's version is just so different. He's got that grittiness, like you said. It's like almost sketch artwork. He just brings this intensity to all of the characters. It's very gritty. It's like the shadows just pull with everything on the page. But at the same time, somehow I feel like his style is almost a little more realistic than anyone else's. Like, especially with the gear that the characters carry, like that was one thing that stood out to me almost immediately, is that, you see them have like these big utility belts on, like Batman has like all these belts and all these like notches on him, and he's got a knife like at the front of his belt, and like he has boots and like actual combat gloves on. And the same kind of goes for like Nightwing's costume, which he wears like this, jacket over like his regular suit, and Batgirl's too. I feel like all the costumes are really well designed. But I feel like he brings this element of grittiness and realism and like almost brutality. Like when I look at the art on his pages and his panels, it's like I can feel how hard he must have been pressing on the paper when he was drawing them. Like, damn, man, you're gonna like burn your pencil. Like I can almost see smoke coming off of his like pencils and stuff that he uses to draw. It's just it's so metal. Like it's awesome, and it's so different that it just catches your eye and it makes you like double take. Like, whoa, that's something different. Like that's a different take on Batman. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, the one thing that truly stands out in all of it, because once you read it, I think when you get to issue 6 or 7, there's finally this phenomenal car chase where you have like every version of the Batmobile, from the 1960s TV show to the 1990s the movie. You got the one from Christopher Nolan's movies. You have like all these Batmobiles, and it's just one of the craziest, most fun car chases I've ever seen in a comic book.
Yeah. I mean, there's 2 car chases in the first White Knight. One of them was, God, I forget which issues it was in, but it was when they were working on apprehending Batman the first time, the GTO. That was just awesome, where Bullock and them had like their Hummer tank things, and they were chasing the Batmobile. That was really good. Like Murphy's action scenes, particularly the 2 car chase scenes, are just drawn so well. Like you can feel the impact of like the crashes and the bullets hitting the cars, doors flying off. You can almost like feel the heat of the flames when like a car catches fire. And like the second chase scene that had all the Batmobiles when they did the assault on the freeze gun tower thing. Oh my God, it was so cool to see like the Batmobile from Batman the Animated Series. You had the 1961, like you said. You had the Tumbler, which they actually called the Tumbler. from Nolan's films. You had the one from the 1989 films with Tim Burton. It was just the homage that he pays to the Batman mythos as a whole with his artwork. Oh, he just kills it with that kind of stuff. It's awesome.
Yeah, he lays out so many Easter eggs throughout that entire comic book. It's insane. We couldn't even begin to talk about all that because there's there's 1,000 of them.
We'd be here for hours.
Yeah. So White Knight introduces a familiar but distinctively different versions of Batman. Gotham. Batman's allies and villains. What separates Sean Gordon Murphy's Batman characters in Gotham setting from DC's traditional takes on them?
Well, one of the key interesting things that I found. Well, first, let me start that this is supposed to be sort of spiritually set in the Batman the Animated Series universe, which I found to be awesome. It definitely pulls a lot from that in themes, and it kind of takes an M-rated turn on that universe, which is pretty cool, especially for the whole Black Label thing. But the first thing that really stood out to me with Murphy's characterizations and kind of his way of retooling the Batman universe and the characters in it is that Jason Todd was Batman's first Robin in this, and he was I think he's letting he's setting seeds for a Red Hood story down the line, which is going to be insane. I can't wait to see what he does with that. But he was sort of dead, or at least Batman thought, and that kind of changes his relationship with Dick Grayson, who's traditionally his first Robin. They fight a lot, and Dick kind of says a couple times oh, you never liked me as much as you liked Jason and stuff like that, which is a complete reversal of how it was in main continuity, that Jason always kind of lived in Dick Grayson's shadow since Dick was the first Robin, and he was he set all those high standards for the Robin mantle. So I thought that was great, and it kind of starts Bruce out with this mental instability, which I don't think the main comics go over a lot. I mean, if we take Tom King's run out of here, which I don't want to bring this up, but I mean, his run was supposed to focus on the mental instability of Batman, but it did not do that in a very good way. Sean Gordon Murphy's story is how you focus on that line that Batman walks between, he walks this very fine line between, being a hero / vigilante and then being a crazy murderer. And he kind of really does a good job at kind of passing him closer to both sides of those lines during this book. One thing I really liked was how it emphasized how much Alfred means to the sanity of Batman and Bruce. While he has Alfred, that's his goal. He's trying to, help him and get him past his illness. And then once Alfred dies, which, Bruce knows that Alfred basically gave the last moments of his life to him to make sure that he could recover from his injuries. He goes off the rails, and it really shows how Alfred keeps Bruce stable. And I think Barbara actually said something to Grayson about that. She's like, we have to keep him in check now because Alfred was the one doing that and he's not here anymore. So he's going to be like a lunatic. So I feel like that's a really, really cool thing. He actually writes Barbara Gordon perfectly, which is very rare to find in modern comics. Most people write Barbara as this airheaded, teenage, flawedy girl, and that's not who Barbara Gordon is. It's not who she ever was, and it's not who she should be. Murphy completely gets Barbara Gordon, and he writes her so well. I really enjoy the way he writes Commissioner Gordon too. Perfect. Yeah, he's just got these. Murphy's Batman universe, the Murphyverse, is everything the Batman universe should be. It's fantastic. Every character is just written to the maximum effectiveness, and there isn't a single wasted moment with any of these characters. Everything they go through means something. You can feel the emotional moments. You feel that impact of Alfred's death. You feel the impact of Gordon's death. The way that Barbara Gordon just went off the rails and armored up with all these guns and started taking the war to Azrael and stuff when he killed Gordon. Oh my God. Just everything is done so well. The man does not waste a second in his writing. It's just all the characterizations are great. It's perfect.
Yeah, Batman is a little bit more brutal. In the opening scenes of White Knight, he almost murders Joker with his bare hands.
Yep.
And that kind of sets the things in motion when he kind of turns into Jack Napier because he shoves like some pills down his mouth. He's a little bit unhinged. He's almost killed a few people, and then it's also kind of changed his relationship where, with Gotham, to where the rich elites are kind of using Batman, to buy up like cheap property and to keep the poor people poor, and so it definitely has changed. It changed the relationship between Bruce Wayne and Batman and Gotham, which I found very interesting.
Yeah, it definitely takes a different twist on that, because a lot of times we see, and like I'm a big fan of Scott Snyder's characterization of Batman, but a lot of times we see in more modern interpretations that Batman, like, he's perfect. He knows everything. Like, he has a solution to everything. I thought it was really, talks to Grayson about it, talks to Gordon about, like, where he says, like, I just straight up didn't know this stuff was going on. I have failed this city. And it really lets you kind of get that attachment to Batman in a way that not many writers can do that. You kind of feel almost sorry for him, that, like, you're so devoted to this one cause, to this one goal, to this tunnel vision, definition of justice and helping Gotham, that you can't even see sometimes that you're being used and manipulated by people too. It's fascinating, like, to show that Batman does have these flaws, and he works then to rectify them. Like, he's like, okay, we have to kind of change our approach, and now I know about this Batman Devastation Fund and how people are, the elites of Gotham are misusing that and taking advantage of me, and now it's time to bring the fight to them. It's just really good.
So I want to talk one other thing of characterization that he did that I thought was interesting. So in the first story, The White Knight, Joker gets basically cured. He becomes Jack Napier again. He runs for Congress. He gets like the trust of the city. But there's another Joker that comes in. It's called Neo Joker, which is, there's like two versions of Harley: the one that he fell in love with, and the one that Joker replaced her with, who's actually crazy herself. A lot of people have issues with gender swapping, race swapping characters. What did you think about the way he handled his gender swapping of Joker? Because I thought it was really brilliant.
Oh, I thought it was perfect. And the reason why it was good was because there was no emphasis on the actual occurrence of the gender swap, and it made sense. I always say that, like, if you want to gender swap or race swap a character, don't just make it about the character being a different gender or a different race. Give me a good story to it, and I won't care. To go a little off topic, like with this rumored Luke Fox becoming Batman thing, I'm completely okay with that, as long as the story makes sense. If they can give me a well-written story that has a good build-up and gives me a reason for that swap to occur, I'm completely okay with it. There's no problems. And the story, leading up to, the emergence of Neo Joker, it made a lot of sense. And it really showed how insane and diabolical and nasty that the Joker is. That, he had the original Harley Quinn for so long and never noticed that she was that she left him and was replaced by a totally different person. It just showed, wow, he didn't notice this. And he didn't care. Like, holy crap!
So obsessed with the person he really loves, who is Batman.
Yeah, and it's awesome, and it's just handled so well in terms of how it affects Joker, and then Jack Napier, who expresses that grief. He's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that this happened to both Harley and Neo Joker. And then it just shows how crazy Neo Joker is, that she's kind of like the Joker is with Batman, but she's like that with her and the Joker. Like, the only thing she wanted was to love the Joker. Like, she wanted that criminal kingpin figure to survive, and she just masterminded a great scheme. I felt her characterization was on point. She was everything she needed to be, and at the end, she ended up being the villain. that brought all the heroes together, despite their differences. Everyone was at odds with Batman during the whole book. Like, it was kind of, everyone hates Batman kind of thing, where Gordon even turned against him. You had Barbara and Dick turning against him. It was, and by the end of it, Neo Joker was the villain that brought all of them back together. And we see that spectacular chase scene with all the different Batmobiles. And she was the one who kind of brought everybody back together, which is what a good villain is supposed to do. I just thought, yeah, her characterization was perfect. And that's one thing I want to emphasize on. And I think a little later on in a bit, we're going to get to, how Sean Gordon Murphy works with his fans. That's a prime example of Sean Gordon Murphy knowing exactly what the fans were looking for. They weren't looking for that emphasis on, oh, Joker's going to be a woman now. They just want a well-written character. They just want a character that we're supposed to care about and that the story makes sense and the story brings us into. And that's exactly what he gave us with Neo Joker.
Unfortunately, that's going to do it for our Murphyverse conversation for today. This was planned to be one segment, but once Josh and I start talking about something we really enjoy, we're always going to go a bit long. So this is going to finish up tomorrow, where Josh and I discuss some of the rules Sean Gordon Murphy has put in place for his Murphyverse that are really fan-friendly and serve the reader's interest first. We're also going to talk about Curse of the White Knight and some of the things we'd like to see in the Murphyverse moving forward. Thank you so much for watching this video, and be looking out for the conclusion tomorrow. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.